Good evening and welcome to the Milford School Committee meeting, Thursday, February 7th. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast through Milford TV, and there is local media here as well in attendance. If anyone would like to video or audio record the meeting, please let myself or one of the other school committee members know. Before we do get started tonight, I would just like to ask that we observe a moment of silence for Paul Seaver. Paul coached here in Milford. He was a tremendous coach, and I think more importantly, he was a great mentor to many of our students. Not only here in Milford, Paul contributed time at the youth center and spent time coaching, at the youth level and at other area schools around, and he battled a long and courageous battle against ALS, and he will be sadly missed. So if we could just observe a moment. Thank you. Our first agenda item this evening is the presentation of the Superintendent's Academic Excellence Award. We do have two students here this evening, Diana Gonzalez and James Mullihu. And Bob?
Sure, I would invite James and Diana to come to the table here. And just by way of introduction, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents affords school districts each year the opportunity to recognize students. It's really dependent on the enrollment of the high school. So Milford's size allows me to select two students. So Diana and James were my selections for this award. I'll just read what the award, and I have it for you this evening. This says, it's Certificate of Academic Excellence to the students for having duly qualified under the standards prescribed by the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents is hereby awarded this Certificate of Academic Excellence. Signed by myself. We had the opportunity to have a luncheon together, although we weren't seated together. We were, by the time we got there, everyone had a table claimed, and we were in 4 different parts of the room. But we clapped good and loud for you, and they made us very proud. And I would just ask, and certainly the committee would like to hear from you if you're so inclined to say a couple of comments about your experience. And I shared with you part of my rationale for selecting you, given that you're well-rounded academic students, your musical interests, athletic pursuits, all of those things. Maybe just share a couple of experiences if you would mind about that day, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much. It was a great experience. There were so many incredible students there that it was just humbling to be there. It was really wonderful to be able to represent the peer mediation program for the high school, because that's something I'm involved in and really enjoy, and it's a unique program that our school has, so it was nice to represent that.
And again, thank you for selecting both of us. And while, like Mr. Tremblay said, we weren't able to sit next to each other at the same table, I knew several people there from Massachusetts Lions All-State Band and from Boys State, and people that I saw at Central Districts just a few weeks ago. And the presenter that we had said that Massachusetts has the highest achieving people, highest achieving students, and the fact that we are the highest achieving of those students was very impressive, and it reminded me that we are on par with all these other students that are around us, and Milford High School has given us the education to compete with these top students, these people that are going to go out into the workforce and do amazing things, and that we're able to compete with them. The fact that Milford High School has been able to do that, I'm very grateful.
That is very proud. On behalf of the committee, I'd say congratulations, and you certainly made us very proud. I'm sure your parents are extremely proud of you. You should be proud of yourselves, and very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members have any questions? Or?
And we do have a couple of certificates for you, so if you wanted to come up, I guess I'll have to have you come around, or you can, I don't know what's.
Why don't you come on up around?
Come on, you have a new configuration, you gotta figure out how to do this, but get it to work. You wanna just come up and, this is for Diana first here. Congratulations, Diana.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you represent us. Thanks for doing that so admirably.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And James, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, James. Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you both. And to your parents, thank you. Paula is, educator in Milford Schools, kindergarten teacher. Started together around the same time at Memorial School, and just to have your families here and your support. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in. Second item on our agenda is approval of minutes. We do have two sets of minutes, both from January 17th. We have the regular meeting minutes of January 17th, as well as the executive session minutes from January 17th. Do we need two votes on that, or can we do one vote for the two of them?
I think do those separately.
Okay, so has everyone had a chance to review those? Can I have a motion to approve the regular minutes from Don, a second from Paul? All in favor? Unanimous and opposed? No one, unanimous in favor. We will take a motion for the executive session meetings. So I have a motion from Scott, a second from Christine. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. Those were the only minutes that we had. Third item on our agenda, announcements, correspondence, distributions. Do any members of the committee have any announcements? Paul?
Yes, we all got a notice from Superintendent Tremblay regarding the virtual learning gains momentum in Massachusetts classrooms. I guess it was on WBUR radio. Again, just to commend Milford High, or the Milford School District once more, not only having such bright students, but also we were a few years ahead of our time, where one of the quotes in that report was Massachusetts is expected to approve 10 virtual public schools in the coming years. This is with the virtual learning, but we've been doing it for the past several years ourselves. So it's something that we're already ahead of the game, and something else that the residents and taxpayers of Milford can be proud of with Milford Public Schools. Thanks, Bob. This is a good job you did, too, with this program.
Thank you.
Any other members?
Mr. Chairman?
Bob?
Just the distribution that's in the packet this evening is from the last meeting, the superintendent's mid-cycle progress report, and I revised the data analysis goal to, and I added a couple of benchmarks with respect to the observation evaluation tool as well. But the substantive change is on the data analysis piece. I'll just read that quickly, just to make sure the committee was intended to be brought back to the committee for tonight. I was wrestling a bit with the weekly meeting piece, and I think this captures what I'm looking to do. It now reads, I will work with Patricia Meehan, who is our data specialist, with expertise in data warehouse and Massachusetts DESE assessment data analysis as needed, but at least monthly, to generate teacher reports on student performance outcomes as a catalyst for data-driven discussions with principals as they assess educator effectiveness at the building level. Through this consult, curriculum team leaders and principals will be provided with the necessary training to generate their own reports so that our dependence on an outside consultant can be minimized in the future. And I think monthly is more appropriate, and that will work better, and it's a goal that can be easily fulfilled in that regard, as opposed to having to just have weekly meetings for the sake of weekly meetings, which comes with a price tag to the town. This seems to fit the actual need. So unless there's any corrections to that, that's the proposed revision that I have for the committee tonight.
Okay.
And the only other, thanks. The only other announcement is that there's no school tomorrow. I made that a few different ways today through the Alert Now and through the media sources, but just in case it didn't get out, just however that may be possible, there is no school in Milford tomorrow, and all activities for the weekend have been canceled as well, anticipating that we'll need some time to clear the snow. Depending on how much we get, the town certainly will need the time to get the roads cleared first and do the parking lots last at the schools.
Bob, on that note, I actually did get a couple phone calls and some questions about, specifically actually these, for community use, the ski program that actually usually goes out on Sunday afternoon. As we know, obviously the storm will be past that. With that, obviously you canceled everything, including for that as well for the weekend?
Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
just a meeting
But
spot
he sent
only,
out
so.
a separate email?
Yeah.
To all
Just have
community.
not seen that.
Yeah,
I get some phone
separate.
calls, so.
Yeah, he sent out a separate email for all community use programs, and he highlighted which programs would be canceled. And I believe ski was one of them.
Okay. I
Ski
believe
was
so.
canceled, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, he canceled everything, but whoever was involved, he sent out a mass email.
Great, thank you.
It's too-
The amounts that they're talking about, do they always clear the roof, or who would be responsible as far as deciding whether or not that should be done?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, because as you recall, we had that question about load bearing and the roof and all that. I
Right.
think you have to see Rob will be monitoring that, and he did the last time with that, you know, and I'll stay close to him with him on that.
Okay.
So I'll just have to see what happens over the weekend, how much snowfall we actually get, how much is drifted, but we'll watch that as well. He has custodians assigned to the building throughout the weekend as well, and they'll be clearing snow. I don't know what his plans are for roof raking and so forth, but I can certainly follow up with Rob on that.
Yeah, just a thought.
Yeah.
Especially with what the amounts they're talking about, you know.
Yeah.
Last count was like 40 inches, so. As tall as me, so.
The seniors are happy they don't have to make the day up at the end of the year. Everybody else, not so much. We'll be back in another day in June.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, check with him on that.
I will do that. Safety first. My concern is that the snow fell later in the day, and we had our buses moving, and we couldn't get up Bear Hill, for example. We could have a real problem. So even though that snow may happen the heaviest part of the day, we want to keep our students safe and our families safe.
Next up on the agenda is invitation to speak. Is there anyone here for invitation to speak? Seeing no one. Next up, we have the introduction of the Woodland Elementary School Building Project Manager. We have Jeff Luxembourg from Jocelyn Lesser and Associates. Jeff, you join us up here? Good evening. Jeff, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it. The committee has been anxious for quite some time in looking at renovations or a new building for our third, fourth, and fifth graders. You know, the building committee's been keeping us apprised of the progress that's been being made. You know, we were excited to hear when you were selected, your company was selected as the project manager, and just wanted the opportunity to meet you and hear a little about you and Jocelyn Lesser and Associates, and, you know, maybe just kind of where you're at.
Jocelyn Lesser is a project management firm. We specialize in owner's project management. It's all that we do. We also specialize in doing it for the public sector. We have an extensive amount of K-12 projects. So those include middle schools, high schools, elementary schools, and lower elementary, upper elementary, different configurations of elementary schools. So we're familiar with the kind of environment that you're talking about here. We recently finished a new grades 3 to 5 in Norfolk for a new school built adjacent to the existing school, and we took down the existing school. We just finished a high school in Uxbridge that opened. We also do some work for UMass, projects in Amherst and Lowell and Boston. So we understand very well public sector, working with committees such as yourselves. We're excited about this project, and we're in the first stages, which is to select an architect, which is selected by a panel impaneled by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which includes 16 members, 3 of which are from local members appointed locally. So it's a mix of state representatives and locals, including Mr. Tremblay. So we're excited about that. We got proposals in today. We got a nice range of proposals in for architects from excellent firms. So we're actually very pleased with the response that we've gotten so far. Here to answer any questions about our firm and what we do. The day-to-day project manager is David Krawitz, so he's available, and I'm available for whatever you folks are needing. first step, I think, for the committee will be, we will work on a program for the building with Mr. Tremblay, and obviously this committee would be involved in that aspect of the project, so.
Okay. And you've met with, you meet regularly with the school building committee?
We meet
That's your
regularly
vote.
with the school building committee on a monthly basis, and I'll create a working group that Mr. Tremblay will serve on. That'll be a sort of the day-to-day, which will probably meet weekly or bi-weekly with that group as we get through the early phases of the program. The first step with the MSBA, who's funding a portion of this, will be to get approval for preferred options. So we're going to be looking at options of whether it's a renovation, an addition and renovation, or a new building. We'll develop those options through the building committee and through some open public participation. So if any parents or interested residents or abutters want to be involved, there'll be opportunities for people to be involved.
Any of the members of the committee have any questions or comments?
A little too early right now.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, I myself I'm sure the committee too, very much appreciates you coming out tonight. And not only that, but we heard so much about you and your company as well too, and we're proud to have you on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to, along with some more comments, actually, I've had an opportunity to speak with both administrators as well as some members of local committees. Some of the schools that you mentioned that you've actually done projects with, and they certainly couldn't, actually had a parent seek me out in the parking lot the other day who had worked in one of the schools that you have recently worked on and couldn't wait to tell me what a great job you guys did. So if that's any indication, I'm certainly looking forward to a great working relationship with you. I think one of the big concerns that we're going to certainly look for, and I know that myself as a community member, as a resident, and certainly as a taxpayer is certainly going to be most concerned about, is obviously, as would be with any community, is cost. And I wouldn't expect you to have any of those numbers. It's far too early in the process of that. I know something that I would certainly appreciate is, as we continue to talk, what are some of the creative ways, and I'm not looking for it tonight, that you'll continue to hopefully work to save the taxpayers as creatively as possible,
Sure.
without cutting any corners and certainly still giving the best value.
Sure.
So
We-
something
we
that we'll
understand
certainly look
that,
for.
And that is going to be a critical aspect of it. And obviously, this MSBA also wants the most cost-effective project, so we'll be looking at various options. What we do is making sure the quality is there, and we also look at the life cycle. So you want to look at the building will be there for 50 years. You want to make sure that the overall cost, the cost to run the building as well, are taken into account as part of that. So we're very cost conscious, and I think as you've heard from our references, we've been very successful making sure that we bring in projects on budget. So points are well taken, and that will be discussed throughout the feasibility study phase.
Just refresh my memory and for the public, so this feasibility study stage
Yes.
will tell us whether you recommend a new school, a renovated school, or an addition to the school. Is that what this feasibility study is telling us?
Yes, I mean, we'll work with we'll
Right.
work collectively to
Right.
decide that.
You're the
We're not
manager
gonna
of
come and
this.
say we should do X. We're gonna get input from the community on what you want to accomplish with the building and come out with options that do that. But you're right, the range of options is probably a renovation, an addition renovation, or a new building, either on the existing site or some other site, probably more likely the existing site. And we will benchmark those options and look at the different costs of that range of options, preliminary cost of those options, and also look at the program and how well the building either does or doesn't serve the educational needs, which quite honestly is the most important thing. You want to make sure it solves the educational needs first. And we'll look at the existing building and how it does that, and then look at options. So sometimes quite honestly, it's cheaper to build new. Sometimes it's cheaper to renovate. So it really depends on the condition and what you're trying to accomplish.
More recently, I've been hearing, the MSB's, the Building Association has, these plans that they like people to choose, and they like school systems to choose. Do they have you found that successful? Does it make it easier for a community? Does it or do they really look at the community and say, all right, none of these plans fit, we need to do this? I'm trying to get a sense of, you know, a cookie cutter approach versus what we can fit into that space, or, you know, that kind of situation.
They have something called the Model School, which is what you're referring to. It's a program where they've taken plans from other places and said, just build this here.
Right.
They have to invite you into that, and they haven't necessarily done that yet. They
Okay.
want you in the feasibility study. We can look at whether that makes sense. You have to make sure that the building that you're suggesting works with the site that you have. So if the building was built on a slope site and you have a flat site, a little
not
bit
gonna work, right?
problematic. Because the idea is literally to take the plans off the shelf and
Yeah.
just put the building there. You also need to look at your educational program and see if it works for the educational program that the building was originally designed for. You know, size, size and also grade levels. So if the building was built for an elementary K-5 and now you've got kindergarten rooms with toilets in them that you don't need in your
Right.
third grade, you're spending money on something you don't need. If you start to change the plan significantly, then you're not doing what the model school was intended. So you have to find a model school that would work, figure out if it's the right size, and also see if they're interested in inviting you in. So,
Okay.
We've had communities where they would like to do the model school, but the MSBA is not interested in having them do the model school. So it has to be both parties. But we can look at that in the feasibility study.
Thank you.
And I apologize, just one last thing. One thing that you did mention was longevity, and I think that, you know, as this is gonna be obviously a very significant potential investment of taxpayers, as I look at some of the buildings we've got in town, some of our older buildings have done a great job, and I think they've certainly held the test of time. Some of our newer buildings, including the one we're actually looking at right now, we're talking about a 30-year shelf life for them. And again, it may be too early in the process, this may be part of the feasibility study, but just as we think about this process, what are the life cycles that we look at as we go to, whether it's reconstruction, new construction, add-on, whatever the options are? What
The
have you
MSBA
seen?
program requires a building that's 50 years, so we'll be looking at a 50-year life. Now, having said that, there are parts of the technology in the building probably has a 5-year shelf life or maybe more, but the technology changes quickly. The mechanical systems in the building are probably more likely 30 years. The roof is probably 20 years, but the building itself needs to withstand 50 years, probably longer. So, I mean, there are buildings that'll last 100 years, so at least the framework of the building. So, but the requirement is to do a building that has a 50-year life, so that's what we'll be looking to do.
Thank you.
In addition to the cost savings that you'll be conscious of with respect to the building, emphasis do you put on looking at energy efficiency and maybe environmentally, making it more environmentally friendly? Are those things that you look at? And
There's something called green design, sustainable design, which involves energy cost and things from photovoltaics, things like that. Also involves simple things that you never see, is just designing to get daylighting into classrooms at the right orientation. So you design the building to have, you understand where the sun comes up and where the sun comes down, and you site the building so that the classrooms get the appropriate light at different times during the day. Art rooms, for example, are on the north side of the building. For that, that's the appropriate light for an art room. So you want to look at how the daylight comes into the building. You can do things to bring more light in, and when the light is coming in during the day, it automatically shuts the lights off. So, you know, on a bright day, you don't need the lights. There are tools for that. And you look at an array of these kinds of things in the building. The MSBA gives 2% extra on a new building, and even for a renovation. It's a little harder on a renovation. They give you an extra 2% reimbursement if you meet certain standards. There are minimum standards you have to meet no matter what.
Right.
And then if you get to a certain level in either what's called LEED for schools or mass chips, they'll give you an extra 2% reimbursement. We've done that on every single one of our projects. So
Oh, wonderful.
you want sustainable elements in the building. you want, some of it's for education. Sometimes the payback is not as much as the fact that you can teach children everything from recycling to renewable energies, that type of thing. And we've had various things from, rain gardens to recycled water, waterless urinals. There's a range of things, some of which have some cost and trade-offs. So we will review with the district and the committees, what do you want this or you want that? And it's a point system. So if you can take certain things from certain points and then not take others, because some of them have extra costs that go with them. So you want to look at the trade-offs of those things. So we anticipate this will be a green, quote-unquote, green sustainable building, and that's becoming part and parcel of architecture these days.
Sure.
It's sort of standard operating procedure to look at all of these things. So we expect that this will be an environmentally friendly building, and it will have those various elements in it.
Great, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Just a question. Jeff, we're glad to have you on board, and up until we were invited into the capital pipeline, every year my office would just have to resubmit the statement of interest, and you do this every year as an annual exercise, and then finally we're invited into the capital pipeline, and then our first step was to do the RFS, as the committee knew, to get your organization or get an OPM on board. Could you explain to the committee, maybe just briefly talk through the timeline from here?
Sure.
Just maybe address that, because one of the questions people have in the community, I'm certain, would be, well, how long before we know what it is we're going to do? And, could you maybe just give us a sense of that?
Sure. The first step is bringing on the architect, which we got proposals in today. They will go to this panel on March 5th, and the panel will review them and probably rank them, 1, 2, and the top 3 firms. Traditionally, they would interview the top 2 or 3 firms, and we're hopeful that would occur on March 19th. We then go through this first phase of this feasibility study process, which takes about a couple months, where we identify the criteria and the options we're going to look at, and at the same time work with the school department to develop the educational program. And that's submitted to the MSBA in what's called a PDP, a preliminary, what is it, PDP? It's Preliminary Design Program, I think. And it is the program element. It says, there's a cafeteria and it's X amount of square feet, and there's a gymnasium of X amount of square feet, so many classrooms, an art room, music room, that type of thing. And we send that in while we get ready to while we evaluate options. So, and the options are all based on the same program. And then that program goes in what's called the preferred schematic, and that's given to the MSBA 6 weeks before a board meeting, and they review that. They get the PDP a month before, and then 6 weeks before the meeting, they get this package based on a vote of the school building committee that says we prefer a renovation, or we prefer a new building in approximately this location. And the MSBA board reviews that, and then says, yes, we concur that makes sense. You can go ahead and do what's called schematic design of that option. And from that point, it's about 4 months to the next board meeting where you would say, this is the schematic design at approximately this cost, and this is what the town prefers, and you bring it to the MSBA board. They vote on that at a board meeting, and they have a committee meeting before that, but they vote on that at a board meeting. Following that, you have 120 days to get your local approval. So they say, we will agree to pay X reimbursement rate based on your reimbursement rate plus a couple points for the green building if we go with that, which I presume we will. You get a maintenance score from them, which is usually 1 to 2%. And they add all that up and they say, our reimbursement rate is this. This is the amount of money we're going to give you. Your share is the difference between that and the cost that we've projected. And you have 120 days to get your local approval, which I believe is, I apologize, I think you have a board of selectmen? Okay, so I think it's the Board of Selectmen that would then need to approve it locally. And then once you get your local approval, you get what's called a project funding agreement from the state. So that first stage takes anywhere between 6 and 8 months. After that, you now have the money for the project allocated. You then do the full design, because at that point you have a concept and the cost nailed down. But the design is really what we call schematic design. It's a concept. It isn't a full set of drawings. From that point, it takes about another year, and then I'd say to build this building is about 18 months to 2 years. So we're about 3 years away from, a little over 3 years away from opening a new building. It's a long process, and I wish it was shorter, but that's the reality of the process.
Just one more question. You mentioned a maintenance score. Is that
Yes.
on the new building? Is that on how we're maintaining the current buildings?
That is their ranking of how well you maintain your current building. So the better you maintain your current building, the more reimbursement they'll give you, because they want to know that you're going to take care of the building that they're helping fund. And there's I don't know the exact way they figure it out, but there's an aspect of looking at how good you are with that, and then if you put aside extra money for maintenance, they even give you more points. So people ask me, well, why do we do a really good job? Why don't we get the maximum? Because the maximum requires you to literally have a rainy day fund kind of thing like a maintenance trust. But it's usually somewhere between 1% and 2%. I've never seen anything higher than 1.6, and I've seen it as low as 1. Used to be they just used 1, and now they've come up with some scoring system. And have they told you that number yet? No. Okay, it'll come out. Yeah, for the maintenance.
No, they had some paperwork on that, but I'm not aware of what the number was and how they did that.
Usually it comes out during the feasibility study, and we don't know what the number is yet, but.
If I remember correctly, Quinn saved the score pretty well during his update.
When they came out and did the senior study on the site, they gave us a great review on how we maintained our facilities, and yeah, absolutely. So I expect we'll do well. I don't know how much what they would require for a threshold in a rainy day fund for maintenance, but certainly we can build up that kind of reserve to demonstrate, to bring those points to us. Yeah, we did score well last time in the review.
Yeah, so I somewhere between 1% and 2%, and you get 2% for green buildings, and there's something called CM at risk, which is a method of managing the project, and they will give you an extra 1% for that. And the building, we discussed that with the building committee, and they had interest in that, so we're going to do a presentation at the next building committee about CM at risk, and that will allow additional reimbursement to come for that. And then renovation allows you 5 percentage points, and a model school allows you 5 percentage points. You can't get both of those. You can only get a model school if they ask, so that one is really not your choice. The renovation is 5%, but it's not 5% in total, because if you add an addition, they don't count that. So it's 5% for the space that is being renovated if you do a renovation. Those are the possibilities. And so when we do the study, we evaluate that. Part of the reason renovation gets you more is it also costs more to reconfigure a building if it's not working quite right for your educational needs. So there's a premium for that, and you have to look at the amount you save with your foundations and your structure versus the amount of, quite honestly, it's easier to go out and build new steel and new building. It's simpler, so there's, it's the thought of, best analogy is when you're doing something at home, if you go and buy something new, it seems like a waste, but it's cheaper to just go buy something new. But if you take your TV to a repair shop and you spend 8 hours on trying to fix it, it would be cheaper to buy a new TV. There's a lot of that in construction because it's simpler to build new. So we will compare those costs with what we save, and it really depends on the educational program, which is where we start.
Great.
Anyone else? Jeff, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it a lot, and look forward to meeting with you again and working with you throughout this process.
happy to work with all of you. If there's any questions throughout, feel free to contact me or David Kraywitz. Bob has our contact information, and again, we're very excited and we're happy to work with all of you, and I think this is going to be a great project for you and for us as well.
Very exciting.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next up, we have the English Language Learners Program update, and we have our English Language Learner Director, Jennifer Lancaster, here with us. Hi, Jen.
Hi. Thanks for having me here this evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy to be here to speak about a community I'm passionate about. So, in front of you, you should have two handouts. I wanted to first address the map, our map of the United States, and look at our country at a macro level and the changing demographics and diversity. If you look at the left column, and you can see from the past few decades the increase in diversity. And in the larger map, if you look over to our state of Massachusetts, and specifically you can see Worcester County and the percentage of diversity. So that when we look at Milford in a few moments, we can see like, wow, why are our numbers in Milford increasing? Well, it's not just our numbers in Milford that are increasing in our ELL department. It's national. It's nationwide. It's statewide, and then we can look at it here in Milford and look at our numbers and say, okay, it's not just Milford, but we need to look at this for projected numbers for the future and for our community at large. So I just wanted to give you that for reference so you could see the macro level. But speaking to Milford in particular, you have a handout that has some slides, and I know that was emailed to you earlier this week. But looking at the changing Massachusetts district demographics, and this map is more like ethnicity, and with ethnicity comes linguistic diversity as well. But within the PowerPoint slides that I gave to you, specifically addresses our linguistic diversity within our community. So in Massachusetts alone, you can see from 2000 to 2011, there was at least one ELL classroom in 177. Now it's all the way up to 324. So again, just stating again the increase across our state and not just in our district. If we look at our district's numbers at a finer, that you can see that our total population, according to yesterday, was 4,338, and 299 of those students, two more that I tested today, so 301, are ELL students, and that is 7% of our public schools. Now, when we can break that down into percentages within the school system, and you can see that Brookside is at 16.4% of their population are ELL students, and 19.8%, basically 20% of Memorial Elementary are second language learners receiving ELL services.
Can you define ELL for the public that's watching this?
Okay.
Because ELL,
Absolutely,
it has different
it's
meanings,
jargon.
so that's a
Yes.
really important criteria to tell everybody.
Okay, absolutely. ELL stands for English Language Learners, which means that their native language at home or their first language is a language other than English. And when they come into our school system and are registering at the Family Resource Center, they have to fill out a registration packet. Within that registration packet is a home language survey. Once the parent completes that home language survey, if any other language is placed on that home language survey, other than English, we're required by federal and state law to test that student's English language proficiency. We have an assessment in our district that has also been adopted statewide called WIDA model, and we use that assessment to test our students' English language proficiency. According to the level of their English language proficiency, results will determine whether that student needs to receive ELL services, English language services, or is a fluent English speaker and does not need to receive English language services. And also dependent upon the score that's received on that test determines how many hours of English language services that student is provided. And that is also guided by our state legislature, like our Department of Ed, on how many hours they're to receive according to their proficiency level.
Do you have a sense of, not to interrupt you, of how many, your percentage of students that you have to identify and put in the ELL program. So if you have 100 students coming, families registering that say they have a second language, do you have a sense of what percentage you normally see that then, of those families that have a second language that need remediation or English language support? Like, do you usually get 80% of those, or I don't know if that's even a possibility depending on the diversity, but I'm just curious.
I'm sure that percentage has probably been worked out by Ann Feldman, because this is my first time in this position, and it will be my first time going through kindergarten registration next Wednesday. I personally don't have that data. Yeah. Yes.
I was just wondering, once they're in the program, how often are they tested? Because based on these percentages, it looks like you do a great job in lowering that percentage from school to school. I mean, Brookside 16%, Memorial's even higher, but by the time you get to the high school and middle school east, you're at 2%. So
Yes.
Just wondering if you could explain, once they're in that type of a program, how often are they tested, and then typically how many years do you see them migrating out and into the regular classrooms?
Our students are tested yearly by state tests. In the past, it was called MIPA, Massachusetts English Proficiency Assessment. However, Massachusetts has adopted a new assessment this year called Access for ELLs, which also goes along with their new standards, WIDA standards, which we used to have ELPO standards. So we have new state standards and new state testing. So with this new testing for Access for ELLs, I don't know if that will vary how quickly students are leaving the program, or if they're going to be in longer, if they're going to leave sooner. That's it's all new. It will be new for us to look at this year being the baseline and looking at next year and how that progresses. But in the past, how it's worked is that students, depending on, obviously this is with any student, depending on their parents' education, the socioeconomic status, their literacy within the home, that's for every student. But we'll see students exiting the program at different times. Overall, we know that it takes linguistic research. It takes students 7 to 8 years to catch their English language speaking peers. So it's a moving target. So as long they're trying to learn their academic language with English, but so are their native peers learning academic language in English as they increase cognitively and emotionally and physically. So it's a continuously moving target, and research shows that it's about 7 to 8 years that our English language learners will meet academically and linguistically their age peers, which is the data that's presented to you this evening. We're seeing that here in our county, and I mean our town.
Would some of these percentages indicate that perhaps enrollment of students that don't speak English as their primary language has gone up?
Absolutely.
I mean, because that was interesting that you asked that, because that's what I was thinking when I looked at the percentages by school.
So our numbers are increasing, and what's different now than what was in the past is many of our students are born in the United States. If you look at our next one of the next slides, it's titled "Country of Birth" for our 2012-2013 English language learning students. Within K through 2, if you look at Brookside/Memorial, 93% of our ELL students are U.S. born, so they're U.S. citizens. And you're looking at increasing numbers, yes, of incoming students that are United States born, whereas in the past we would have a lot of transient migrant students moving in. And now you only see that if you look down at Stacy in 7th grade, 8th grade, and in the high school, you're coming to 0% are U.S. born. And with the numbers in the high school, if you look at 10th grade and 11th grade with 10% being born in that grade level in the U.S., that's only because they were born here, moved back to their native country, and then came back in high school. Yes.
where you have the percentages here, on the first slide that you were talking about with the various schools.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be an awful, an awful increase, of course, with Brookside and Memorial. And then as you get to Woodland, Stacy, it seems to like peter down almost by half or if even more.
Yes.
It would lead someone just reading this to think, is it because they're proficient and they're getting out of the program? Or are they more or less leaving the program or leaving the school altogether and like you would say, going back to their native land? Is there a way that there's actually like a tracking program for each student to see how successful they are? Are they staying in the program? Are they leaving the program?
We have to, by state mandate, monitor our students who have exited the program for 2 years. So for 2 years after the program, they're considered formerly limited English proficiency. Excuse me. So yes, we do monitor our students for 2 years. The reason why this number decreases so much is because the students are exiting the
Because they're
program, not
leaving.
because they're moving away. They're exiting the English language services.
Oh, okay, and moving
then
on to the
moving into the
mainstream.
mainstream classroom.
Oh, excellent.
Yet being monitored for 2 additional years,
Right.
making sure that they're succeeding in the classroom. And at any time that they're not succeeding, they can be pulled back into the program in order to receive those additional services so that they are academically successful.
Right. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah,
But one
absolutely.
one other question I had too, Mr. Chairman, is when the country of birth,
Mm-hmm.
and I do see, all the U.S. born, but as you get to the upper grades, you see a certain percentage still not, U.S. born, still needing this program, which would lead me to believe, of course, as we all know, education goes beyond the 4 walls here. And if you don't have the support of family and parents to more or less add to that program, to the success of that program, you're not going to get any success at all. So someone like me who's really is learning all this right now, and I'm looking at it, to me, it's more or less these individuals aren't getting any English until they come to our schools. In other words, they're not getting any support at home, in other words. So it's that much more difficult or that much more of an enormous task for the teachers like yourself to be successful. So is there any outreach program, is what I'm trying to get at, is a way that the school can actually reach out to the families and more or less continue the lesson from the school to the home?
Yeah, that's actually an initiative that I want to put into place next year. This year being my first year on board, I'm a little bit in survival mode, to be honest, and learning the new state standards, the new state testing, getting our ELL teachers trained for that. That was a big initiative this year for our ELL because everything was changing. So making sure that that was in place. But we also have the Title III grant where we can write in support systems, as you're speaking about. And currently at the high school, the population you're speaking about, Mr. Fernando Borges, who is an ESL teacher, he is doing 3 hours of tutoring every week. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, he stays after school for an hour to help give tutoring services to students who are taking the MCAS, who have just been here maybe 2 years and are required to take MCAS and must pass MCAS as every other student in order to receive their diploma. So he's tutoring right now for the biology exam that will be coming up in June. And so we do fund through Title III grant tutoring services for these for the students to reach their academic needs. As far as family outreach, that is projected for the future.
Ideas that I came across when I was researching this is that some, of course, as you would, just by showing us the map, we know this is not unique to Milford.
Right.
It's a nationwide.
Yes.
And some of the schools, districts, let's say in Arizona and Texas, the borderline states, more or less have like a committee for each individual school district, made up of teachers like in ELL heads like yourself and other teachers, and as well as community members.
Yes.
To more or less outreach to the family, and it's a committee. It's an ELL
Absolutely.
committee that they have, And it not only more or less helps giving, your individual department ideas, but also would extend that to the families as well. It's just an idea to.
Yeah, absolutely. Ann Feldman had the BPAC, which I was part of last year as well, and a few years before that, and BPAC stand for Bilingual Parent Advisory Council, and that is something that we will be continuing to do next year as well.
So far, and again, thank you for coming tonight. I know that you've got some plans as well, as far as I hear a lot from parents reaching out saying, hey, and some teachers as well, saying first day of school, all of a sudden we have 50 kids show up
Yeah.
that haven't registered for kindergarten.
Yep.
In addition to the administrative and logistical challenges that presents, I can't imagine how that makes those students feel. Can you talk a little about some of the plans that you have to help potentially avoid that?
Mm-hmm. So kindergarten registration is next Wednesday, and just in the past we have the headsets that will be available, and we have all the translators in place. Anna Cahill has been absolutely amazing in organizing all of that. I can't imagine doing part of my half of my job without her. We also have done outreach in so many different ways. If you've noticed the police signs that say kindergarten registration, that's presented here in Milford. So if you're driving by or walking by, that's saying that the kindergarten registration. Just yesterday, Yvette Aleman, who did the Spanish, and Anna Cahill went to Bob's office to create an alert now, just going out to the Portuguese families and Spanish families. So you won't hear it, but it's just going out to tell your friends, tell everyone. We also have flyers that we've been giving out in the Family Resource Center. So when one family comes in to register, we say, if you know anybody, your brother, your sister in the community, in your neighborhood, that has a student that's coming up to kindergarten, please let them know, and that translators will be there to help you register. Another piece that we put in is when I was reading the newspaper the other week, I noticed that there was a big ad for Arabic Christian Church here in Milford, and it only had an email, but we contacted them through email outreach, and their pastor sent back an email. Yes, so it's in their bulletin. He's speaking to get our Arabic families in as well to kindergarten registration next Wednesday. St. Mary's has been contacted, and it's also in their bulletin, and it will be announced in their Portuguese services. So there's definitely been outreach to make sure that this what happened last year is minimized.
To you, and certainly the support team that you have that's working towards that. I think the more proactive we can be on that, and again, not only helping our teachers and our administrators on that, but also, at the end of the day, we're talking about children, and we want to make sure that they feel welcome and that their first experience with school is a positive one. The next piece I did have a question for you on was as we look at kind of page 5 in that presentation that you provided to us. What's interesting to me and what kind of struck me when I looked at that was the huge percentage increases. And I realize that, like Stacy, the number itself is not actually a huge number of students, but we're talking about some very large percentage increases. And for the benefit of the viewing public, in each category, so Brookside, you're looking at almost a 9% increase. Memorial looking at close to an 11% increase. And those are the smaller ones. You go to Woodland, we're talking about close to a 60% increase at 58.5%. A 2/3 increase at Stacy at 66.7% increase. 50% at Easton. Again, we're talking about there's only 6 students. We're talking about going to 12, but percentage-wise, it's still substantial. And then 14.3. 50% decrease, I apologize, at Stacy, which is good. And then at Milford High, a 14% increase. We're talking about some pretty substantial increase numbers. Number one, what do you kind of help us understand and attribute what those massive increases are saying? Is it really just the change in the demographics? And how are we prepared to be? How are you helping prepare our schools to be able to help with that? And how can we help?
Well, we're pulling our hair a little, to be honest. No. We're looking at these numbers and we're saying, okay, well, what are we going to put in place? Well, what is the state putting in place? Number one, the state knows this. So I'm going to go and look at the macro level first. The state knows the increase in numbers. That's why they came up with our new state testing. That's why they came up with the new state standards for our ELL students. They also came up with RETEL, which stands for Rethinking the Equity of Teaching Our English Language Learners. Because there are more ELL students present in every class across the state of Massachusetts, that there will be a 15 PDPs of every teacher's relicensure will be specifically on English language learning. 15 of that will also be on special ed. So there's a whole new outlook on servicing the whole child from state perspective. However, there's an additional piece to that relicensure for English language learners. And that is, if you are a teacher that has one ELL student in your classroom, you are required within 3 years of our cohort to have a SEI endorsement, a Sheltered English Immersion endorsement, which is a 16-day course, like 3 hours of course. So we're prepared by hiring. Our state is prepared by making sure that all teachers are prepared to service our English language learners. That has happened in the states of Florida, that has happened in the states of California, in Texas, in Arizona. Teachers are required to have this, every teacher is required to have this SEI endorsement. And so that is what our state is requiring, is that every teacher is qualified to give these students an equitable education that meets their needs and knows how to service students who are learning English as a second language. So that's at the state level. At a district level, we're looking at the increase of numbers and also being able to service them, not just with an SEI teacher who has had this training, but also by state mandate that they receive direct English language instruction by a licensed ESL teacher. So this endorsement is different than teacher licensure. So students, English language learners, are required to get English language services through an ESL teacher. With that being said, and the numbers increasing, we're doing the best that we can to service them by the guidelines that the state asks us. Is that happening at every level? No. And we know that. But the state knows that. And the state knows also from our last coordinated program review that we're working toward that. And we have teachers we have half-time teachers possibly that will be added to our staffing next year that will help work with our English language learners.
Obviously, there's the other side of that coin, which is the cost component too.
Absolutely.
And obviously it's,
Which
you
is
know,
a
anytime we're providing,
non-funded state mandate.
that was gonna be my next
Yes.
question is, is this something that, how is there's costs and obviously there's a burden that's now placed on taxpayers, whether it's at the state, the federal, it's all our money, no matter what
Yes.
It's just a matter of how much of it's just ours. So to your point, it is an unfunded state mandate, so ultimately we're gonna have to find through either our Chapter 70 money or through our town budget, somehow that we're gonna be able to we've gotta pay for these, it's required, we don't have a choice. We ultimately have to make sure that we're providing those services, and the funding ultimately we've gotta come up with on our own.
Yes. And there's ingenious ways of looking at it too. Like, can we start hiring duly certified teachers? So elementary certified with ESL licensure to eliminate that. Yeah, can we start looking for that so that the classroom teacher is providing the English language services? And we can look at that down the road as we hire new staff.
Where it's a non-funded mandate, and of course it keeps increasing each year, and with that increasing, the amount of students, also the expense keeps increasing, like Scott just pointed out. We're doing our best. We're making gains, we're making progress, we're doing a process, or the best we can to meet our needs. What would happen, or what impact would it have on the program, number one, if we didn't do all these mandates, we just did what we could afford? What would be the impact on the program? And not only that, what would the state do? I mean, is there an enforcement there? I mean, does the state enforce these mandates? Are these mandates enforced? You know, because what I'm trying to say is, we have a finite source of funding. And we also have numerous other programs that we also have to look at as well, hence the traditional English-speaking student that we have to watch. So just let's say we do what we can. We do what we can afford in this town, and we do it right. We do some of our mandates, but not all these mandates. What impact would that have on the program? Would it be devastating, or would it just be, like you would say, you know, like coasting along? Or, and also, if we did just some of mandates and not all the mandates, how would that be enforced? Because I'm sure what I'm trying to say is, what the 365 cities and towns in this Commonwealth, is everybody doing every mandate to the letter of the law? Or if it is a mandate a law?
I'll give you.
I don't know, is it? I don't know.
I'll give you a brief overview.
Sure.
Our English language learning department at the state level had an audit, and that audit didn't go very well. Hence, new state standards, new state testing, new endorsements, new required endorsements, required licensures. So is there a consequence? Yes. Will there be repercussions? Yes. What that looks like, you have the same prediction that I would have. I don't know what that would look like. However, will it be there? Yes. Are other districts struggling too? Yes. If we don't provide the services to our
Provide them the best we can.
provide them the best we can. Okay, if we're providing them the best we can, then we're providing them the best we can.
Afford.
But I will the best we can, and that means I can lay my head down on the pillow at night and say that's the best we can.
Right. In other words, with an unfunded mandate, I don't think anybody can come after us if we're doing the best we can.
Absolutely, if we
Right.
all consciously know we're doing the best
Absolutely.
we can.
Oh, sure. Right.
Absolutely, then I would be in agreement with you.
Good. Thank you.
Are these gonna be shared with the public, the stats?
These are public, these are
So,
our stats, yeah.
First of all, you know, I think you did a great job preparing this. I think it's tremendous.
Thank you.
The one thing that I did get out of this, like I was saying before about that time frame to migrate them into the regular classroom, was, to me, this shows Milford's doing a fantastic job.
We have
You
some
know, when you-
phenomenal
yeah,
English language
and-
learning
and
teachers.
that's, you know, thank you to you and your entire staff. The fact that we're taking these kids, because when I first saw this, it's shocking. When you're realizing 20% of your student body is coming in and English isn't their primary language, that's eye-opening
Yeah.
to anybody. But then to see, you know, within that 7-year period, you've taken that percentage from 20% down to 2%, is a fantastic job. The thing that really makes me nervous, you know, regarding the budget, is we're trying to give you as many ELL resources for the kids to continue on this path. What makes me nervous is the future projections. I can honestly say that when I was a student here 25 years ago, you know, maybe there were a couple kids, you know what I'm saying? So even like when Carla Tuttle came in here talking about the federal lunches and food programs, she told me that from 1995, I think it was, when she took over, to today, the percentage has gone from 9 to 30%. So we're at 20% today. Where are we going to be 5, 10 years from now? So what I'd like to see is, can you show us a chart over the last 10 years where that curve is going, so we can try to project into the next 3, 5, 10 years? Because right now it's one of those giant slopes spiking. And if you read the papers and you're reading about, you know, Milford's housing is struggling compared to other towns and all these other things, there's lots of alarms going off to say this might get a lot worse over the next 2, 3 years. And great, we can give you all the resources that we can today, Jen. Next year you might come back and say we need 5 more teachers. ELL teachers or resources and those types of things. And to Paul's point, we're getting to a breaking point where we're given funds from the state and the town that don't allow us to help you and these students. So it's very alarming and something we have to take into consideration. But if we could get a kind of a graph
Absolutely.
that shows us where we've gone in the last 10 years, or where we, how did we get to this point? So we can go to the finance committee and not just talk to them about our need today, but, really open up
Our
everybody's
projected
eyes
needs.
as to, this is what Milford's probably gonna look like in 5 years from now, and we really need to take this seriously. So I think that would be beneficial for the program and for us as a committee to help us make decisions and to support you and continue to support the ELL program, which again, I think is amazing. I think it's fantastic what you do. And to your point, if we can come up with creative things, like, are there summer programs, are there after-school programs? What can we be doing as a community to get these numbers down? The thing that bothers me is, in the budget conversations that we're having, and you look at the school budget over the last 10, 15 years, it's grown, what was it, $10, $12 million. If I'm an elderly person sitting at home watching this right now, and all I'm hearing is increase, and I'm on a fixed income, and I know my taxes are going up, and my medical bills are going up, this is scaring me right now. So, these are the things that we need to, I think, tell a better story to the town as to.
Absolutely, but I want to comment back onto what the state has put in place for this SEI endorsement. They're aware of that. They're aware that this is taxing upon communities, and that's why they're training all teachers to have SEI endorsement, to be sheltered English immersion teachers. They're aware of that. They know that there's a monetary value behind making sure that there's an ESL teacher that's providing services. So to make sure that all teachers are qualified to teach English language learners, the state hears your concerns. That's why they put that into place. So down the road, if we have more teachers who have this endorsement, and we have more teachers who are going to be duly certified, because there is an avenue of getting licensure and skipping this endorsement, and you might have more teachers who opt to do that. I can see that maybe in the next few years, while this is in progress, it might be something that we're looking at for budget. But in the projected future, I don't see it as being something, personally, Mark, I don't see it as being something that we're going to be looking at in budget, because teachers will have that endorsement and are required to have that endorsement in their licensure to relicense. And if they do not have that, they cannot relicense.
To Donnie's point, and I appreciate that ongoing feedback, and to your point of, in the very short term, over the next 2 to 3 years, part of what's made Milford the financial success that it has been over the last several years has been our ability to plan. Mm-hmm. As we think about, the previous presenter that was up here talking about the potential of a new school,
Yeah.
and we're looking at that, and certainly the population changes that will continue to happen in every town throughout the country and certainly throughout the Commonwealth. The more we can help plan for the short term will help us to continue to be financially successful and remain financially strong, where we can continue to provide all services to, whether it's the ELL students or whether it's the non-ELL students, and really to all programs. So I hear you. I hear that the state hears us.
I'm in
I'm
agreement
cautiously optimistic that long-term we'll be able to get to that we'll be able to do that, and ultimately my concern, quite frankly, is the next 3 to 5 years. From a standpoint of, as we go through this recertification, that you're right, they won't be able to relicense. We're gonna have to go through and do that. There's some costs that's associated with that, as I'm sure I know you're well aware of, because you're a certified teacher. In addition to, the creative way of hiring duly certified teachers, I got that. We can only control how many retirements we get each year, and also what the application pool looks like. Mm-hmm. So I'm hearing you. We're gonna get there. The next 2 to 3 to 5 years are really kind of what concerns me. So the more we can get those projections,
Yep.
I think would help, so we can continue to support you the students in Milford, as well as balance that with the taxpayers. Because to Paul and Donnie's point, it is.
I live in Milford.
And you know, and right, you're one of them. It's a
Yeah.
finite pool of people, and handing out those, you know, I take that very seriously, as I know all members of the committee do. You know, that tax bill that shows up at everybody's house once a quarter, you know, 50% of that goes to our budget. So it's certainly a big responsibility, as I'm sure you understand.
Yep, and I will get that chart.
Great.
And I guess I was just saying to support Jen, is what will happen is that, you know, it's not going to be such a population pulled out of the group of students. It's going to be just a different version of heterogeneous grouping, so that our teachers are certified in such a way that they can teach that broad spectrum of student within the classroom.
Yes.
And the difficulty is that at the youngest ages, where they're learning how to read and those basic literacy and language skills, that's where we're seeing the biggest numbers, because everybody's in that same boat. So I think in the long run, we'll be fine. I think we are just, 20% looks like a lot, but it's not hundreds of students, let's be clear. It's several students that need some intervention. You know, I mean, when you look at it from a school to school perspective, 60% is not 600 students. I mean, we have 4,300 kids in the district. We have only 300 ELL. Only sounds small, but that we need to service. So we have to be careful, and I think to Jen's credit and to our credit, when we've worked together, there's incredible creative ways that we can get these students what their needs are without pulling away from other parts of the budget that are calling us. And I just think it's difficult when you keep hearing unfunded mandates, and all you can do is the very best you can do. And we just have the supports in place to get the programs in place, so that, you know, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so we have to just kind of carefully plan ahead. And I think all these questions we're asking are going to get those numbers so that we can plan. Mm-hmm. But I think the state is finally cluing in that it's like you can't just keep pulling this population out and saying you have this ELL and this SPED population. That they have to be integrated as just part of the classroom experience. And then you don't have a teacher that has 50% of her class ELL. You have a teacher that across 8 classrooms, we have 3 students that need that ELL intervention, which makes a huge difference to a classroom teacher. So I think the onus is on us to make sure teachers that are interested in this and that see the need, that have the support to get the licensure that they need and the SEI training, the onus is on us to get that done. And that isn't as tough money to find as whole new staffing, whole new numbers and stuff like that. But I don't want the public to think that we have, you know, that all of a sudden we're seeing 50% of our class. No, there's bumps in the road, which falls perfectly in line with the kids' educational experience. The young kids we're gonna identify them young, because that's when everyone's acquiring language skills.
Which leads me into this, Jen. You're on the right track, because I came across a study, University of North Dakota, not in my classroom, teachers' attitude toward English language learners, and they said the reason why that relationship is starting to deteriorate, number one, is because teachers across the nation are significantly lacking in training on how to educate ELLs in the mainstream. Okay, and they also said that most classroom teachers have minimum, if any, training in adapting their curriculum and teaching practices to meet the needs of linguistically diverse students. And again, with all the evaluation based on their success, they feel as though that there's that disconnect with the ELL students. So now by training the teacher in how to teach ELL students is a great step in the right direction, because this study proves that that was the reason why the success wasn't there. But now with this new program that you're doing, or the mandate that's happening, we're on the right track.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
No, I think we covered the gamut pretty good, and
Excellent.
and again, you know, you're hearing us. You know, we certainly, you know, believe in the work that you're doing, and as well as the teachers that are there, and you know, it's something that we all need to pay close attention to. So, and we will do that.
And I just like saying, our budget, which was a lot of your time, but incredibly valuable. Like, it was an incredibly valuable discussion for all of us, because we see things and we're like, wow, but when you have justification, or you can have a nice educated discussion amongst us and the people delivering the services, it makes a big difference. So you may get called back to visit us, but I appreciate the time that you spent, because it was really, really valuable.
Well, I
Much.
thank you for the opportunity to be there to advocate for my staff and for my students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You truly are. It's a gift, and it's certainly something that we appreciate. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Jen. Okay. Next on the agenda is, we have our nursing director, Judy Dagnes, with us. We're gonna have a first reading of the revised file JL Student Wellness Policy. Hi, Judy.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. In front of you, you have a copy of our student wellness policy, which was adopted, I believe, in 2006. Since that time, we've had a couple of revisions to the policy. I guess what's most significant this time is now the student wellness policy is a mandate, a state mandate, for every district in Massachusetts. So we have made some changes to our policy. Last March, some of us who are part of our wellness committee attended a forum that was sponsored by the DPH and the DESE, and Superintendent Paul Mazzucchelli, Diane Pinto, excuse me, attended the forum, and it was basically telling us how you write a policy and what you do to establish a wellness committee. So we got a lot of valuable information from the forum. What we did find that Milford was really ahead of many communities, because we did already have a policy in place, which many did not, and we also had a wellness advisory committee in place. And so we did have to make some changes and revisions, but they were minor. So in front of you, you'll see we refer to the law now that is in place, definitions of wellness. We also added school health services. We felt it was important to have nursing services as a part of our wellness policy. And we also thought it was important to have mental health services be a part of it. And we also addressed what a wellness advisory committee does. And we are now mandated, as I said before, to have a wellness advisory committee also. And it tells exactly what's required from that committee. And we have several people, actually they tell you who should be on the committee, and most of those people were already on our current wellness advisory committee. So basically that's it. If you have any questions, if you've looked over the...
Judy, I got the outstanding job that you're doing on that wellness committee that we have. And Bob, too, your support is outstanding as well. And again, like Judy says, when we were at that meeting in Marlborough last March, we were very much ahead of most of the communities that were there when it came to our wellness policy. And we had the committee already in place. It's composed of not only the school personnel, but also parents and individuals in the health field as well to advise, and we're doing great. One of the things that we do is we just don't put that policy out. We try to put that policy in action. And Judy, you have that program that you do in April with the school district, keeping everybody moving and going, and let them know the importance of exercise. Because one of the things that we came across was that the Milford Regional Medical Center had a community health assessment with many of the communities around us, and Milford seemed to rate pretty high in regards to their overweight population, especially in the younger kids. So again, it's something that, it's a continuous work in progress. It's something that we're always trying to keep our eye on, and not only get involved in the physical activity, but the nutritional aspect, as well as the mental health aspect. So we try to get a whole health, involved in the individual. And again, it's a great job, and it's something that we always got to keep on. Thank you.
Relates to this as well, but when you say that we rated high, does that mean we rated well because we have a low number of students?
No,
or
we
rated?
didn't, and actually,
I just want to make sure, I'm like, I'm not sure that's good.
When you talk about
You-
weights, you don't want to say high.
yeah.
That's what I figured. I wanted to make sure, that's what I wanted to clarify because of the way that it came across.
And
So we do
actually,
have
we
a,
just received this information, and, you know, we are now required, by law, for grades 1, 4, 7, and 10 to have body mass index. Our nurses conduct those screenings, and all that information is then sent to the state. And actually, what this health assessment showed, they used area towns such as Bellingham, Hopedale, Medway, Mendon, Upton, Milford, and then they broke it down to Metro West region and Massachusetts. And for each grade, 1, 4, 7, and 10, it showed our obesity rates were highest or higher for many of the communities. So that's why this policy is even more important. You know, we have, I think Carla came and talked to you about all the nutrition, you know, new standards with nutrition and cafeteria vending machines and all of that. So, you know, we're working very hard. Bob's been great as far as supporting all our wellness initiatives for staff and students. And we're hoping now that we see what these, you know, stats are, that we will work even harder to keeping our students healthy and getting those BMIs lowered because they are high.
so my follow-up question on that would be, so I understand that you just got the information, so when you think about this policy and as we go through this, does it go far enough? Given that our obesity rates are higher than everyone else's.
Does the policy?
Yeah, do you think where we're headed? Because I think you do a great job, and to your credit and to the team's credit, are we doing, what can we do more? Is this gonna take us far, set us down the right road so that we can hit lower numbers and reduce our childhood obesity?
Well, I'm hoping that it will. You know, these numbers, as I said, are new to us, so now we know what we're facing. So hopefully with the implementation of this policy, more resources that we have, we're very involved with Healthy Futures, Milford, and all these different programs that we have in place, that, you know, our numbers will improve and they will decrease.
I remember Bob started off the school year with your health initiative as well, with the staff too, which I think is important.
And it's great. We're doing many things for the staff, and as he
Yeah.
said, you know, you have to have a healthy staff in order to, you
Yeah.
know, pass it down to the students.
Absolutely.
So we've done a lot of great initiatives as far as we've done BP screenings and massages and self-defense class, which we had to cancel for tomorrow, and boot camp, and actually the Milford community, they've been very generous in offering discounts or free programs for the Milford staff, so we've been excited
Yeah.
about
Oh,
that.
good.
In the fall, we hope to offer a staff wellness, an all-day clinic for the staff, and then if that's successful, to do the same for students.
There's an awful lot going on for the staff. You know, they're gonna-
Well, you know, hey,
We can do a good team builder tomorrow with shovel and snow.
a very healthy staff is a productive staff.
Right,
I mean,
right.
yeah, I believe that. And yeah, certainly the kid,
Look for role
gotta keep
model.
the kids going. And it's an example.
Joe, just to
Yeah.
add a comment, I'm smiling at Judy because I'm thinking of the other day, we had a training in my office of all the principals and assistant principals. And if you're familiar with the Weight Watchers program of counting points, so Judy comes into the meeting. She wasn't part of the meeting, but she came up to the meeting with a bucket of snacks for the meeting, and they were in little baggies, and every baggie had a number on it. And so Craig and Sigley, I remember him saying, "What's this 3 mean? What is this 3 all about?" And Judy explained, "Well, that's the Weight Watchers points. If you consume within the baggie, it's 3 Weight Watchers points."
Yeah.
And there's so many staff in the district that are being conscious of their weight and really trying to make an effort in being in good health. I just think it's great. And Judy, that's, you know, you're always that person for us, and you keep everybody in check. And I know that puts a lot of pressure on you to have to be the example, right? Yeah, but you do that, and you lead us all down that path. And really, what's been said tonight is just to echo that. Thank you for all your leadership in this area.
Oh, thank you, and I appreciate your support, because you have been great about the Snow Health Initiative, and hopefully we will get our numbers improved, and we'll all be healthier, staff and students. Okay, thank
All
you.
your efforts. Thanks,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a matter of the committee business for on this policy, it would require,
Oh, yes.
It's a first reading. Typically, we do a reading and bring it to a second reading. In the past, the policy subcommittee can comment on that.
I don't know, the changes weren't extensive. I really think a first reading with the quorum is appropriate to pass this policy.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any.
Minimal.
It was logistical tweaks, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
That were really made. I mean, Judy does a great job. She's, you know, her and her team are continuing to do the right thing and certainly keep us, working to keep us trim, which is good. So,
Well, do I have a motion? Motion from Paul,
Second.
second from Scott, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous in favor.
Very good. Thank
So
you very
we
much.
will adopt that revised file JL Student Wellness Policy.
Very well.
Very good. And before we get off that, Paul, I want to thank you, too, as the representative for the school committee who sits on that advisory board. And again, with your background and expertise, I think that goes a long way as well, so thank you. Thank you very well. Yeah. Next up, we have the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources. We have some warrants, Kathy, personnel update, and out-of-state field trip requests. What do you?
Seems a little different to be measured here, but that's okay. I can read my numbers. The first warrant is in the amount of $122,103.72.
Unanimous in favor.
Second warrant is in the amount of $17,527.10.
Motion from Christine, second from Paul. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor.
The third warrant is in the amount of $392,471.99.
Motion from Scott, second from Christine. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor.
The fourth warrant is in the amount of $197,580.63.
Motion from Paul, second from Don. All in favor? Unanimous in favor.
And the last warrant is in the amount of $10,819.01.
Motion from Christine, second from Scott. All in favor? Unanimous in favor.
The committee has a list of the latest appointments from our previous meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a field trip request, which is out of state for grade 1 at Brookside to travel all the way to Woonsocket, Rhode Island, to the Stadium Theater for a field trip in March.
Do we know what are they going there for?
You know, I am not sure. The principal has endorsed it, and the entire grade is going.
Okay. Do we have a motion from Christine, second from Paul? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor.
Thank you, and that's all this evening. Oh, there are gifts, Mr. Lanzetta.
There's a trip from the fourth graders, I believe, yeah. They're going to the museum.
Okay, yes, we have, again, going to Woonsocket, Rhode Island, the grade
Popular
4,
place.
2 classes to the Museum of Work and Culture in the month of April, and that is the Woodland School.
That's cool. Have a motion from Scott, second from Don. All in favor? Unanimous in favor.
And we do have gifts, Mr. Chair, in the yellow folder.
Okay. Okay, the first is a generous donation of chapsticks, water bottles, and towels from Concept 2 Incorporated.
Yes.
The second, no, that's a copy, sorry.
Right on the first page,
Oh, yeah,
Mr. Chair,
okay.
you should have everything right in the first 3 lines.
Yep. And the second one is a donation from the Milford Junior Women's Club in the amount of $500. Very nice. We also have another gift from the Milford Junior Women's Club, the Wizards game. The purpose is for the technology for students, also in the amount of $500. This is like Christmas over here today. The Goncalves family, the Family Network gift for contract services and supply in the amount of $25.
Correct.
The Ingemi family, am I saying that right? School and Family Network gift for contract services and supply, also in the amount of $25. The Campersall family for the Family Network, contract services and supplies in the amount of $25. And the LaFrance family for the School Family Network gift, contract services and supplies in the amount of $25. So we really were very fortunate for all of these very generous donations. We'll make sure we do have to vote to accept these. Motion from Don, second from Christine. All in favor? Unanimous in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Next up, do we have any subcommittee updates? Does the policy subcommittee have any updates?
No, the most recent time that we met, one of the pieces that we actually covered was the health and wellness policy that we just approved, so.
There you go. Okay, very good. Safety and security?
Yeah, the safety and security one. So we met, I think it was about a week ago. One of the things that Bob brought to our attention, I should have called you to have you bring one, but it's a red sticker program where they're gonna be stickers. But one of the ideas was to put a sticker in every room. It looks like a stop sign. But what it has, the building name, the room number that you're in. So if anybody calls the police, all they have to do is look at that red sign and read off those numbers, and the police will know exactly where the problem is in the school. So when they're coming to the school, they know exactly where to go. So that was one of the ideas that Bob brought up. Another thing that we talked about was, at the Memorial School, there isn't really an atrium entrance and there isn't a window. So when people are entering the school, that was one of the main concerns that was brought up. So one of the thoughts was we're going to continue to have the kids coming in and out of the front door, but we're going to create a lobby downstairs, I believe, where when the school was built, it actually had like a little atrium area. So it was kind of that enter, check the person, and then, it's kind of like the two-step process. So during the day, they're going to leverage that doorway.
That's the entranceway by the gym. So the original Memorial School, where the kindergarten wing is now, that was sort of the end of the building. So you did have to go by the office back in the 50s. But now you can walk in and go in either direction. And as Don's saying, there's no real sort of staging area, if you will. So you still have that main entrance during the day. In between the hours of the day for coming and going would be the area just between the principal's office and the gymnasium. There's that side entrance there. That it would be there where you can really lock a person right in that waiting area, if you will, to limit access into the building.
Which had Nancy thinking about possibly for Middle School East, doing the same thing with the entrance from Main Street, because it's that big open area. So that's a couple of things that we talked about. Paul, I brought up your suggestion about having an ongoing security committee with the principals and those types of things, and well received. I know Mike was pretty excited about staying and doing this a little bit longer. I know he's really likes it. One of his points was everything that we're bringing up because of the school committee's involvement, that we're able to get these things resolved quickly and move these things along. So. We kind of wish Mike was here to talk about that. But we also went over the new radios, where they're going to be located, how they're used, and all that type of stuff. And then finally, Bob, I don't know if you want to take a minute. I thought that was pretty interesting about the training program that you were going to bring into the school for the staff, because I thought that was interesting, and I think you should take a moment just to share that with everybody.
Sure, happy to do so. This morning on the radio, I was with Chief O'Laughlin, and also Chief Toohey, just talking about the new radios. So those were issued just this past week. 21 radios were issued throughout the schools, which now provides, is in addition to installation of panic alarms in all the offices. As in addition to that. So this now provides a portable system, and I may have stated it before, but I think it's important to restate for those maybe who haven't seen this or heard this before. So for example, these radios that the police, they've upgraded their systems to digital systems, so the radios valued at about $1,500 a piece have come to us at no cost. There was a programming charge we had to pay to have them all reprogrammed. There are a number of radios that the school administrators have, but they're low frequency radios that couldn't be programmed to the police frequencies, so we had to go with this new system. And the way this would work, so really if I was out, say as a teacher on playground duty in the backyard of Memorial School and something looks suspicious, you know, it's happened in the past, you see a van here or there, something looks suspicious, you eliminates the middle people, the hierarchy of having to call the office. I see a van, they call 911 and so forth. If they're using their cell phone, the calls on 911 go to the state police and then are then farmed out to the localities. This now allows the person on duty, the administrator, whomever, to pick up the radio and hit the button and be speaking to the dispatch. Meanwhile, every cruiser in Milford, he can hear the conversation.
Great.
So if you say, you know, there's a white van behind Memorial School, you've saved minutes of getting somebody there to address that, and police officers are around in the town. So that's a tremendous safety effort for us. Also, there's an orange button, as I pointed out to one of the prior meetings, which is really an immediate 911 call. So if, for example, there was a crisis situation and all the radios are marked, they're not GPS enabled, they're not GPS signals, but the radios all have specific assignments. So the principal's radio, if that radio is used for a call, it will show up at dispatch as to which radio number it is and who the owner of that radio is, and generally the location. So ideally, you'd be able to communicate. You'd have the button, you hit the button, say, I'm so-and-so, this is my location, whether it's a room number or whatever it may be. In a crisis situation where you couldn't communicate, you could hit the orange button on top of the radio. That sends, it really stops all communication traffic across the entire police dispatch. And basically that sends that signal, and that signal you can't be released until it's addressed by the police department. So it's a tremendous, I mean, it's really, and as Tom mentioned this morning, I'm not aware of anyone nationally doing this. This is really a new effort. So that's the one piece follow-up on the radios. So those are our, it's not like a pipe dream. Those are out, they're enhanced principles and they're working already. They're out there. Medical emergencies as well, so if you need an ambulance or
Yep.
fire services.
That's where their first
'Cause it goes right to
connect will
the-
be. A
goes-
child has a seizure.
That's
you
right.
can use
It's
that,
right to
and
dispatch.
the nurse will get down there.
Exactly. We could save lives with that effort. So that's one piece of it. The other effort is, as Don was alluding to, is training coming up in March, on March 15th, as I mentioned to the committee before, is an in-service day that we have planned. I've arranged to have all of our custodians at that training, as well as our cafeteria workers, and the staff members who are not the typical 8 to 3, or however the structure is under the MTA contract, for the purpose of having our staff trained with a violent intruder training, response training. This is actually captured, the design of it, Chief O'Laughlin and I working together also with the regional SWAT team and bringing this to the Milford schools, is going to be powerful. It's going to be unique, powerful, and it's actually caught the attention of the DA's office, who wants to come out and actually observe us and possibly make this a model training for educators. Took an ambitious school district somewhere in the state of Massachusetts to do this, and we're it. So as much as I like to be like the trendsetter in technology all the time, like to see that it works, I do want to make sure that our schools are the safest anywhere in the country, and they will be. So this training will be powerful. I will invite you all certainly to come, and the media will be invited, of course, to come as well. And I think it's going to be just superb training to make sure that our staff know how to think on their feet in the event, hopefully the very unlikely event, of a school crisis. So more information to follow on that, but that's the quick glance.
That's a great update. That's
Yes.
wonderful.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don, for the
Yeah.
New business. Does any committee member have any new business? No. Does any committee members have any old business?
I just have one follow-up item. I think Scotty had brought up at the last meeting about the attendance policies and looking at that. We've actually had a couple of meetings since the last school committee meeting where it came up. So, in fact, there is not a school committee as I thought. There's not a school committee attendance policy because there's Mass General Law governing that. We do have school procedures, school handbook procedures, which the committee does vote, coming up in the successive months from now. So I called all the leadership team, particularly the assistant principals and principals, together to talk about that, to try to coordinate and streamline so that the expectations are the same. If a child's in first grade, it's not going to be a different set of rules come Woodland School, come Stacy School, and come Milford High School. And some of the changes that had happened, we're talking about the chins and changes around that law. So it really is, there's changes relative to the chins law that are different than the attendance law, which has remained unchanged. So we're trying to mirror the two so they all work into how we notify families. Obviously, we want to have our kids aren't going to be educated if they're not in school, and we want to hold them accountable to school. We don't want to spend all our time in court. So we're really going to try to work this through. We have now a second draft of a new attendance procedures and protocol, we're calling this. And what I expect that you'll see is once we finally vet this and get this ready for town council's review, it'll be compared against Mass General Law. The chins changes. It will be succinct, reflective, and consistent from school, from pre-K from kindergarten. You're dealing with the requirement of statutory requirement 6 to 16, but essentially from the elementary level to the high school will be consistent across the board. So by the time the schools come here, the principals come to present their handbooks, the attendance policy will be uniform across all of the handbooks. So we've been hard at work on that. I wanted to just follow up on that from old business.
Thanks, Bob.
That's all I have.
Anyone else? No? Okay, there is no executive session this evening. We will not be returning back into regular session. Having said that, we have a motion to adjourn. Second from Scott, second from Christine. All in favor? Unanimous in favor? Thank you. Good night.